Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Motorsport Diaries, my F1 podcast, motorsport podcast, where we talk all about motorsport, but it's a little bit chaotic. I know you're probably surprised to see me. It's been a while. My background is really fugly, but that's because I'm in England. I'm studying abroad for this whole year, so that's why I haven't made an episode in a while. But yeah, I'm back, and this is what you're gonna have to deal with for my background. At least it's F1 related. It's the Ferrari photo wall. I think it's super cute though. The mug of the day, the mug of the podcast episode is this pumpkin mug. I'm actually obsessed with it. I'm drinking chamomile tea. Love it. Let me know what you're drinking or snacking on during this episode on Instagram. Just DM me. I would love to know. Today's episode is all about what it takes to be an F1 driver and kind of the side of F1 drivers we don't really see. And I think it's going to be a really good episode. So, yeah, thanks for joining and let's get into it. So today we're going to be talking about what it takes to be an F1 driver, the psychological struggles that they go through, and things that are not really shown in the media and kind of the things that they deal with. Because I think they go through so much that's just not seen or portrayed. And I think a lot of fans don't even realize like what the F1 drivers go through. So I think the first thing I kind of want to talk about is the fact that while F1 drivers are obviously athletes and high performance athletes, they're also celebrities. And I think that's kind of weird. And I think in some sports, to me it's odd because I am an athlete myself and I did competitive sports like my whole life. And it's so odd to think about the fact that you do a sport, cuz to me being an athlete is, I don't know, you put in all this effort, you have to train every single day. It takes so much grit and effort and commitment and competitiveness, and obviously these F1 drivers do that every single day. But then you have to think about they're full-time athletes, but then they're also full-time celebrities. And to me that's insane. And I know that it's like, yeah, they're millionaires, they're super rich, but what they do so much. Like, they're not just athletes. They have to have this persona for themselves. They have to have this public figureness to themselves. They do all of these brand deals. I don't know, but they're also athletes. And to me, those two things coinciding is so odd. And I think that does play into their psychological struggles. And I think it's also important to think about how a lot of these drivers come into the sport at such a young age. I mean, not a lot of them, but I mean, you look at Lando, he literally was a rookie in F1 when he was 19 years old. Max, like, bro, Max literally was started F1 at the age of 17. What the hell? That's literally like a senior in high school, or like if you're in the UK, Europe, like that's like, I'm pretty sure college. But still, that's insanity. And I think that you look at a lot of the hate that Max received his first couple years in F1 when he was literally 17, 18 years old, and you look at all the backlash that he got, and a lot of it was like, oh, he's so aggressive. He doesn't take responsibility. He just acts out. He's careless. He's impulsive. He's a 17-year-old boy. What are you expecting? Like, how are you holding him to the same standards as like 28-year-old drivers, even 25-year-olds, 21-year-olds? There's such a big difference in being 17 and being like 21, 25, 28. And in a way, it was kind of unfair because he was getting held to these standards that all these older drivers were getting held to when he's literally 17. And we all know men mature a lot slower than girls. Because maybe a 17-year-old girl is maybe more mature, but a 17-year-old boy, get the hell out. My brother at the age of 17 was a crusty rat, and he was so rude and annoying. Like, but yeah, I think it's just like, you look at someone like Max who came into F1 at 17, he was acting like he was acting his age, and he received so much hate. And I think it's also, you imagine a 17-year-old getting the amount of hate that he was receiving is just insane. And I think in today's day and age where everything is online and social media is so prevalent, it's so easy to be a hater. And that sounds weird, but it's so easy to send hate messages on Twitter, on Instagram, because you're not doing it face to face. Everybody knows this. Being a hater is a lot easier to do on social media. But if you saw Max Verstappen in real life, that's the other thing. People will be hating on Max Verstappen, or a lot of people will hate on F1 drivers. If you saw them in real life, you would be like, "Oh my God, Max, take a picture of me, please take a photo with me. Oh my God, get out!" But you're hating on him online, and I've literally seen this happen. I know this one girl got so hated on Twitter because she would hate on Carlos all the time. She would post insanely hateful tweets for Carlos, like Carlos should get dropped from Ferrari. He's so terrible, blah, blah. And then she goes to one of the races and sees him and starts taking photos with him, like, oh my god, I got a photo with Carlos Sainz. Odd behavior. I mean, I would do it too, but no, I wouldn't because I wouldn't be hating on an F1 driver. But yeah, I feel like my whole point is it's easy to be a hater, and I think a lot of the times when people hate on F1 drivers, they don't realize that that is going somewhere, and they might be seeing it. They probably aren't because at this point they're probably like, I don't want to fucking look at my social media. Like Max, for example, he's never on social media because he wants nothing to do with the media, especially after 2021 and all of that. Rightfully so. I mean, but you look at someone like Lando, who's so active on social media, and he's kind of talked about this in interviews and stuff, that when he was a rookie, he would look on social media and he would look at his messages, he would look at Twitter, and he would get so many hate messages. I don't really know why, but he got hated on a lot, and he saw those things, and it definitely made him depressed. He literally said he felt depressed because of that. And the thing is he was saying in an interview with Autosport that he entered F1 at 19 years old, and there was a lot of things that he was going through that a lot of people didn't know about, and you can't really speak up about it because I don't know, it's not really normalized in today's society, I think. And I think a lot of people have prejudice towards celebrities in the sense that when celebrities talk about depression or anxiety or things that they go through, a lot of people will play the card of, oh, they're millionaires, so who the fuck cares? Who cares if they're depressed? Who cares if they're anxious? They have millions of dollars to spend. Some of us actually have to work 9 to 5 jobs. Some of us actually have responsibilities to do and have to get money for food on the plate. So I think that a lot of the times celebrities and athletes, their problems and struggles are kind of swept under the rug, and I think it's kind of unfair. And I think that's why a lot of the times people don't talk about it and celebrities and athletes don't bring up their problems because they're almost seen as like, oh, boo hoo, get over it. But yeah, Lando was saying in this interview that he experienced a lot of depression and self doubt. And I can only imagine because, I mean, you look at the type of situations that you have in F1, like literally Nick DeVries this year or Pierre, literally the whole second seat Red Bull curse with like Pierre, Alex. You look at the pressure that they're faced with, and I know a lot of people say, well, they should know this. It's a highly competitive sport. They signed up for this. But it's something that's not normal, if that makes sense. I mean, they're dealing with pressure and stress and anxiety that most people don't deal with. I mean, not only are they getting judged by the masses, especially like Lando at the age of 19, Max at the age of 17, getting judged by the whole world. Um, they're also getting judged by their team. And I know it makes sense. Obviously, they'd be getting judged by their team. And I mean, it's like that in life. Like, if you're working a job, your boss is going to be judging you. And if you're not doing a good job, you're going to get fired. But then imagine the whole world knowing about you getting fired and everybody has a say in it and everybody's talking about it. Like, that's got to suck. And I think, I mean, you look at Logan Sargent even this season. I mean, what he's been going through, he seems like he's depressed or anxious. He's so anxious because he wants a seat for 2024, but he's under all this pressure and there's no decision. And it's like, I don't know. And I know it's like a normal thing, but it's almost like they're going through real life emotions that every single person feels, but 20 times more heightened and then displayed for the whole world to see. And I think that's insane. And I think that a lot of people hold F1 drivers on a pedestal. They put them on a pedestal and they hold them to this other standard. And I mean, you look at it with like politics and just things in general. I feel like people expect F1 drivers to be perfect when they're literally people. Like, these are people. I don't know. They're normal people who literally do sports. I think a lot of people don't understand that. Like, yes, in today's day and age, they're celebrities because I don't know, F1 is like a huge sport like that. It's kind of like football. I mean, they have millions of followers. There's Drive to Survive, right? So like now they're celebrities, but at the core, they're just athletes. They're just people who are athletic, who are insanely good at their sport, but that's that's all they are really. But people expect them to be perfect. They expect them to be these angels on this pedestal, and I don't understand why people put them on pedestals. And it must suck to be put on that pedestal because then it's like if you do bad one race, which is a normal thing, nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to be perfect every single race. But let's say you do bad one race. Suddenly, people who are your fans, people who support you, are suddenly switching up and sending you all these hate messages. And it just must suck. It must suck because you know that if, unless you're perfect, you're going to be getting bombarded with hate and everyone's going to have their own 2 cents on why you suck, why you're not good enough. And that sucks. That's a shitty feeling. And nobody deserves that, honestly. And that's why I personally would never send hate or be so hateful towards an F1 driver for like doing bad. You know, it's like they're trying. I don't know. Like, so now let's talk about the workout training side of F1 because I think a lot of people don't know about that either, but how hard these athletes really train. I think that we see a lot of them obviously in the car, of course, because that's what we're watching. But we don't see a lot of behind the scenes in terms of training. I mean, Drive to Survive kind of showed some of it. I mean, Yuki's runs that he absolutely hates. Me too. But the training that they do for certain races, like for example, Singapore, is mind blowing. I think Nico Rosberg was saying some of the training he did for Singapore was literally like running on the treadmill at high speed in his race suit with his helmet on and sitting in saunas and doing there's just so much that they do just for Singapore to prepare themselves. I think it's so easy to watch F1 drivers race on a Sunday, do qualifying, and it's like, okay, they put on the race suit, they get in the car, and they do a little woo laps around the track, and that's it. They just drive, and that's it. But like, it's so insane like what they're actually doing in the car and the speeds they're going at, their neck strength, like their neck is fucking snapping every single turn. It's like and just like how much weight they lose after a race, they can lose up to like 4 kilos in a single race, which is absolutely mind-blowing. And I think that they go through a lot during a race. I mean, you look at Qatar, which was very controversial because of how insane it was physically for the drivers and how some of the drivers ended up passing out. I mean, you look at things like that, and I think it really puts into perspective what these drivers are going through on a race weekend. And I think that you should remember that, and I think people should remember like what they're going through and how hard it is to do what they're doing, because I think a lot of people will hate on drivers and they put their own 2 cents and stuff when they're doing so much and they're going through so much in one single weekend where it's like they don't really deserve that hate. Now, something I also wanted to talk about was some of the psychological problems that some F1 drivers go through. So, like depression, anxiety, even eating disorders. So, if you don't know, Valtteri opened up in an article interview a couple years ago about how he had an eating disorder while he was at Mercedes, which is so sad. And I'm really happy that he spoke up on this because, A, we never really hear about eating disorders in men. I think that it's very normalized in women right now, and I think a lot of women speak up about their eating disorders, whether you see it on TikTok, social media, but you don't really see it with men. And I think that it is something that happens, so I'm really proud of him, and I'm really glad that he chose to speak up on it because it is a problem, especially with athletes. And he talked about how he would do so much training during the day. He would be at the gym like the whole day, and the only thing he would eat would be like steamed broccoli, and that's it. And he just barely ate anything, and he hid it from his trainer, he hid it from his team because he just wanted to be fit, he wanted to be in the best shape. And it's just so sad. And that's something that drivers go through. And he also talked about how he was really depressed at Mercedes the last year and he struggled a lot with depression. And he said, which I thought was interesting, is he was saying how he had a psychologist. He ended up getting a psychologist. The psychologist's first assessment of him was that he was just like a robot who just had one goal and that's all he did. And he had no feelings at all. And he just did things on a day to day basis just to reach that goal with no feelings, just like a robot. And that's just, I think that's the reality for some drivers, and I think that's something that a lot of drivers go through but they just never talk about. When you're that competitive, I mean, I know I'm not that competitive obviously, but as an athlete myself, I can say like I obviously am very competitive, and I know when I'm competitive with my own sport, it's all I want to do. Like all I want to do is win. All I want to do, like it gets in your head. And I felt victim to that last year in my spring semester when I was training insanely hard because all I wanted to do was win NCAAs, and like I would just do intense trainings the whole like a couple times a day. And everything I was doing was just about that. and you slowly start to forget about life. You stop living, you stop doing things that are fun, and you stop hanging out with your friends. You stop doing things that you used to do because all you're thinking about is that one goal. And I think that's something that comes with being so competitive. So just imagine F1 drivers who are competitive on crack. It's like, I think a lot of them go through that, and it's just so sad. Sadly, I think that is how you become the best, if that makes sense. I think that the best drivers have to give up the most. And like, you look at Max Verstappen, he seems like he's having a splendid old time right now, and his life is jolly great. He plays paddle with his friends, he's chilling in Monaco. Like, he seems to be having an amazing life right now. He's surrounded by good people, and he's still the best driver. He's still three-time world champion. But you look at how he grew up, and he went through so much. I mean, if you don't know, he got like emotionally and physically abused by his dad. I can't even, I don't even want to talk about the things that his dad put him through, because it was honestly so like heartbreaking as a kid to go through that. But you look at what he went through as a kid, and I can guarantee you that is a very big reason for why he is as good as he is right now. Because you look at his mindset, and he's even said losing to him is not an option, because it wasn't an option for him as a kid, because when he lost as a kid, he had consequences, which he shouldn't have had. It's unfair to hold a kid to those standards. But his dad had consequences for him if he lost. And so, as a kid, when you go through that and you have consequences from your dad if you lose, and you want your dad to love you, you know, you never lose. And I think that goes through his whole life, and he's carried that with him. So I think he kind of has that mentality. So while it seems like, yeah, his life is all jolly great now, he had to go through so much as a kid to get to where he is now as an F1 driver. And I think that his type of talent and his and what he has, and his competitiveness and his drive, it's gonna be it's hard to recreate. I think most people don't have it because it came from his childhood. It came from his nature. That's what he grew up with, you know? And I think it's just sad, I think, to look at that and see like that's a reason why he's so good. And I'm not discrediting him and saying, "Oh, the only reason he's good is because of how his dad treated him." No. I'm just saying that I do think that it did affect it, and I think that does play a role in that. And I think another thing to think about is what you I mean, there's so many things you give up as an F1 driver. Privacy, hello. And it's kind of sad, I think, because something I was thinking about, and I don't know if this is going to make sense, but I was thinking about this, that as an athlete, as an F1 driver, you go into the sport and all you want to be when you grow up as an F1 driver. I mean, all of the drivers, that was their end goal, you know? But when you're a kid, I think you don't really realize what it means to be an F1 driver, what you have to give up, like the privacy aspects, having you like being bombarded by fans everywhere you go, getting all these hate comments and being hated on by the masses. I think you don't realize that when you're a kid, when you're 12, 13, when that's what you want to do in your life, be an F1 driver. You don't really know, I think, what you want, like what comes with that. So it's like these kids are working insanely hard their whole lives, and they finally get to their dream, and it's like they have to give up so much just to live out their dreams. Like, to me, I think the privacy thing is such a big thing, and I think it's oftentimes overlooked. Is that, what if you're a private person? Like, I don't know, you have to give up so much privacy. I mean, you have fans kind of stalking you everywhere you go, and your life is just plastered onto social media. Everybody's making assumptions about you, dating rumors, just rumors in general, and you just kind of have to sit there and see it all happen, and you don't really have control over it. And I think giving up privacy is a big deal. I mean, that's one of the things you give up as an F1 driver. And another thing I think that is also overlooked is friendships. I mean, you look at Brosades, which is so heartbreaking, but you look at Brosades, their friendship got ruined. Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, if you don't know, they were insanely good friends growing up from karting, and the feeder series. And then when they got to F1, they were still really good friends. And then they were teammates at Mercedes, still really good friends. And then Mercedes had a championship winning car, and then their friendship kind of went to shit. And you look at their friendship, and it was destroyed because of F1. And that's just, you know, you're losing friends over a sport. I mean, it doesn't happen often, I don't think, but still, I mean, you do lose friends. And now I don't really want to talk about the financials of being an F1 driver, but I will say something that I think is also overlooked is the type of branding and PR that you are required to kind of be trained in as an F1 driver. I mean, a big part of even getting to F1 are sponsorships and funding that you need from outside sources. And even to get that, you have to be charismatic, cunning. You have to watch what you say. You have to be able to build connections and use those connections. And even as an F1 driver, you have to watch everything you say. You have a censor on you. You can't be free. You can't be open. You have to be super PR trained. And then you look at someone like Lando, who's not PR trained, and you're getting hated on the internet. And, even when you are PR trained, because you look at Mr. George Russell and everyone's hating on him for being PR trained. So you can never really win, I think. And that's the thing I think at the end of the day that sucks is I think F1 drivers can never win when it comes to the media and the public. I think another thing in terms of what they give up that's overlooked is family. F1 drivers that do have a family, people like Checo, Kevin Magnussen, even Max, like Penelope and Kelly, I mean, they lose so much time with them. They can't spend as much time as they probably want to with them, with their family, and like that's sad. And I know that these problems are probably things that a lot of people would say, "Oh, but they're millionaires. Well, they knew what they were getting into." But it's still things that they go through, and I kind of wanted to just shine a light on that because I think that a lot of problems and psychological problems that F1 drivers go through are so overlooked, and I think they are important to talk about and to share and to learn from. Another thing is loss. It's a really touchy subject, but I mean, you look at loss in the motorsport community because obviously motorsport is an extreme sport and there have been deaths in motorsport. And I mean, you look at people like Pierre or Charles who have lost such close ones to them and loved ones. I mean, even enduring that and going through that and then still racing is something that shouldn't be taken lightly. And I think in a way, it's hard. I don't know if the drivers think about this, but if I was an F1 driver, I would think about this is that like you're going every single race and there is a possibility that you're not going to make it out. And I know it sounds stupid to say that, but I mean it is true. Like doing an extreme sport like motorsport, there is always a possibility that you might not make it out. I mean, I know that there's the halo and there's new safety features and the safety has definitely improved, but it's still a possibility even if it's like a 1% or like 0.5% possibility. It is still a possibility. And they probably don't think about it, but I mean, it's something that I would think about. Doing an extreme sport, there's a lot that comes into it mentally and physically. And yeah, I don't think it should be overlooked. And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about this episode. This episode was kind of shit because I haven't done an episode in a really long time and I think I've kind of lost my mojo. But I hope you guys kind of liked it or learned something. And yeah, I will see you in the next episode. Bye.